So, the story of Captain Marvel was pretty basic and kind of goes in line with now this is the general story. Kind of goes in line with, typical superhero movie. You have the origin story, uh, conflict, fights the bad guy, and at the end wins. Doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just it follows that certain pattern. What makes Captain Marvel special, though, is the fact that there were women involved in the lead roles, and the writing, the specific screenplay. So now the overall story could be considered predictable, but the details in the screenplay itself is so important in movies, because I'm 42 years old, and there hasn't been too many women superheroes or women in action movies. The only ones have been, sidekicks. And again, with Wonder Woman, even the Wonder Woman in the 70s, there's been smatterings of it, but especially with Captain Marvel, it's starting to nail things down to where it's like, this is thankfully the new normal, and this is going to be the future, especially because all the money Captain Marvel made this weekend, which was the first weekend. So, as a 42-year-old adult male, some of the things said in Captain Marvel seemed a little too obvious. I guess I'm kind of a fan of subtlety in movies. But then I thought, well, what would an adult woman think of this? And I don't know. I haven't asked any adult women. I don't know any adult women who've seen the movie yet. I saw the movie with my dad and my nephew. But so thinking of that, and if you're an adult woman, please feel free to comment. I would love to hear what you have to say about it, or read what you have to say about it. But along with what an adult woman thinks, what would I think if I was a child, a girl, a little girl, like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, like the age I was when I first saw Star Wars, and I saw Luke Skywalker, and I wanted just to be Luke. I still want to be Luke. Especially after The Last Jedi. I loved how they wrote Luke in it. So, I haven't read any reviews, at least from children, but what would a child, especially a girl, think when she sees Captain Marvel, and what women can do, especially the story of Carol Danvers, when it shows her as a little girl up into an adult, and she literally gets knocked down, and they literally show her going back up. So I think the lack of subtlety was by design, was to really hammer home to girls out there that you can do this. Listen, you're not going to have superpowers, at least not yet. Right now it's impossible. But, and you're not going to be, abducted by aliens and given powers, at least not yet. But what they can do as girls and as women is that they're going to be met with a lot of adversity, but they can push back against that adversity, and you saw it with all the jokes. They call it a cockpit for a reason, or well, why don't you smile more? All these things that women have heard since like birth that men say to them was, and not in a subtle way, shown in this movie. And like I said, it was done on purpose to hopefully inspire girls, to keep fighting the good fight, and women of all ages to keep fighting the good fight. So that's what makes Captain Marvel special. The story was good, you know. I get it, you know. I like the characters were likable. It was like some of the jokes fell flat. Some of the humor was like a little, oh, okay, that was supposed to be a joke, and all right. And you know, I guess maybe by design, Nick Fury was more cheerful than usual. I guess it shows when he was younger, he was a little more happy. The fact that it took place in the 90s, I like the 90s better than the 80s. I see stuff in the 80s, and I grew up as a child. I was born in 76, so I was a child of the 80s, but I came of age in the 90s, you know? So in 1995, I was 19 years old, so all the songs in the soundtrack, I like. The soundtrack was incredible. The way they made... the way they represented the 90s was good. It wasn't like, hey, it's the 90s, yeah. Like, some of the, like, 80s shows kind of say, look, this is the 80s. Look, this is what they did in the 80s. You see this? 80s, 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 80s. Captain Marvel didn't do that. It's like, yeah, this takes place in the 90s. This is stuff they did. It wasn't like, you know, a character in the story. It was like, well, this is the time period of it. So, they didn't hit you over the head with it. That was a little more subtle. You know, and a couple of jokes in there about, like, the CD loading slowly. You know, and you just saw, like, when my nephew loves the old gaming system, so you saw a Game Boy. I nudged him just to let him know. So and with the pagers, you know, that stuff was kind of cool, but again, not like highly integral to the story. So yeah, overall, it was very good, inspiring. I found it inspiring, even though the story was basic, but that's okay. It's not... These superhero movies, especially the Marvel ones, are predictable. You kind of know the beats and what's going to happen, but it's what goes on, you know, the detail, what goes on inside that story, especially with Captain Marvel, is very, very important. So I hope for... the next Avengers, that Captain Marvel saves the day, just to make those people who tried to flood, you know, the review sites with bad reviews, just to make them mad. And I'm not usually like that. I want the movie to be successful on story and cultural impact. That's more important. But if it makes some more insecure men mad that a woman saves the day, all the more better. That is actually progress. So yeah, that's the main message of this podcast. The movie, good. The message, so important and so vital. And because it made money, there's going to be more of these made, and that is fantastic. So now I'm just hoping for a trans. We need a trans hero now. You know, you have Superman, you have Supergirl. You need like a non-binary, like a super them. You know, and it's gonna come. It's gonna come. It may be a little bit, but it's gonna be there. Or, you know, or a trans hero. Maybe there is. I don't think there is. I don't know if there's a comic yet. I know in a Star Wars book, I think there's a non-binary character that goes by them. So it's coming. It's coming. So you know, more people of color. More women, so it's time. It you know, in all the history of film, it's heavily underrepresented. So this is a good thing. And we definitely need more. All right. So hopefully you need more of this podcast, and hopefully I can remember the plugs, which I'm pulling up my links now because it's been a while since I've done the podcast. I'm back in school, so the homework is a lot, but it's very rewarding. So even though it's a lot, so that's been taking up a lot of my time. So anyway, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at MMAM Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at MMAM Podcast. Please rate and share on Apple Podcasts or wherever you hear it, and you can email me. Oh, I was burping, and I didn't do it out loud, but it definitely interrupted when I was talking. And I have to say my important email. So my important email is mmampodcast@gmail.com. All right, everybody. Have a good one. And I'll talk to you later. All right. Bye.